We are heading to Alaska this year to chase king salmon in one of the remaining Alaskan strongholds for kings. We're focused on swinging up Chinook on a Spey rod. We've heard some people on this podcast tell us that it doesn't get any better than swinging for kings. And today you're going to hear from one of our guides and some tips on optimizing for success, whether you're fishing for kings, steelhead, or any anadromous fish. This is the Wet Fly Swing Podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to the fish species we all love. Hey, how's it going? I'm Dave, host of the Wet Fly Swing Podcast. I've been fly fishing since I was a little kid. I grew up around a little fly shop and have created one of the largest fly fishing podcasts in this country. Floyd Carter, passionate guide at Togiak River Lodge and beyond, is going to share some of his experience and expertise on what it was like his first time up at Togiak. We're going to actually get into here about this Spey camp that they started out with the first year and some really interesting stories behind that. And then we're going to find out what 2 lines and 2 flies you're going to only need for Togiak and how you can get your line out there even if you have no room for a D-loop. You're also going to find out why you don't have to be a mega hucker to have success on the Togiak this year. Quick reminder before we get into it, we've just launched the giveaway, and if you want a chance to win a trip to Togiak River Lodge right now, you can go to wetflyswing.com/giveaway, enter your name and email, and we'll follow up with you with our big announcement next week. We'll be choosing the winner. Also, if you're interested in finding out more, we've got a little information at the end of this episode. Oklahoma bred turned into a Spey junkie. Here we go, Floyd Carter. You can find him at carterspey.com. How you doing, Floyd?
Doing well, Dave. Good to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on here. This is, I talk to people all the time. I was just at a recent show chatting with some people and randomly ran into somebody who, we were talking and he didn't know who, that I had the show. And then he realizes like, oh man, I listen to the show all the time. And he said specifically, the space stuff, like he's kind of getting into it. And, I think he's got a few struggles, but I think we're going to talk about that today. And then also maybe how people can take it to the next level and get in and think about Chinook fishing, which is something we've chatted on here before. But before we get into all that today and talk about Togiak and, some of the other areas you're fishing throughout the year, bring us right back to fishing, fly fishing. How'd you get into it? Have you been doing this a while?
Well, back to your original statement, I sure do understand the struggle. I've fished my entire life. I bought a bass boat before I ever bought a vehicle.
Oh, wow.
And I did some fly fishing in Colorado. That's where I grew up in the high school and college years. But as I moved around about 10 years ago, it was probably about 10 years ago, I took a trip to Seattle with my sweetheart. And she had a conference and we were piggybacking that into a vacation. And so I had a few days to wander. And I ended up in Emerald Water Anglers talking with Dave Mccoy. And the essence of that conversation was, there's not a man in your family unless you're swinging flies for an anadromous fish.
Right.
And I said, well, open up your books, because I've just got time on my hands. And so Jason picked me up from our swanky hotel, took me to the Skykomish, put me in some leaky waders. I came out at the end of the day looking like a baby giraffe. And on the flight home, my sweetheart and I were making our 3-year plan to move to the Pacific Northwest, because I told her I was going to be a Spey guide.
Wow.
So during that 3-year period in Oklahoma, I kept flying back out. I realized the skill set that was required and the investment. And I ended up getting paired up with Tom Mahan from Swingwater. And he and I hit it off, and Tom graciously put me under his wing and just went up and down the Northern California, Oregon, Southern Oregon coast and some of those trips, and just did a full deep dive into Spey and, the casting and reading water and rowing and all of the things I had a severe deficit in. And we got out here, and I had saved up and went full tilt and, did a lot of poor diet, poor sleeping, heavy doses of caffeine, and just kind of tried to make my way into the game. And fortunate was lucky enough to get referred to Derek Botchford from Tom Mahan for a program on the Togiak that they were starting, and talked with Derek, signed up for it, and met Stevie on the Togiak, and he and I and this wacky bush carpenter built a Spey camp just down river from Togiak Lodge, and it was a challenge, and it was, beautiful. It was all the things that you would expect in building a Spey camp in the middle of nowhere, and that's where I also met Zach and Jordan, and they're wonderful human beings.
Yeah, they are.
And that was my first official paid gig, was the Togiak Summer.
Wow, no kidding. And
Yeah.
so that was it. So you jumped right into it's pretty amazing, right? And was this right into King Chinook fishing?
Yes. Yeah. That was the first guided fish that I ever got to hand.
That was. So what was that like?
I have that photo in my mom's house. That's how sentimental it was.
This was the first fish that you caught, or the first fish your client got into?
First client fish.
Oh, wow. What was that like, that first client getting the fish?
It was, you're suspended. Anybody in the game knows what you put into it, and the travel, the expenses, the time and effort and practice. And so the reward was everything you can imagine.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So you sound like you had some pretty amazing mentors, or at least one big one along the way. What was Tom's? What's his background? I'm not totally familiar with Tom.
Tom's a NorCal guy that's been just about everywhere.
Oh, okay.
And he cut his teeth on the Trinity. But at the time that we hooked up, he was doing work for Emerald Waters. And that's how we got connected, and we just hit it off. I told him what the goal was. He kind of laughed at this dude from Oklahoma, who's a bass fisherman, was now wanting to be a Spey guide, and I've kind of run into that in the best possible way. So when we landed here, I walked into Portland Fly Shop with Jason Osborne and told him, my spiel. And in his, skeptical way, he kind of sized me up and has been, nothing but generous and supportive along the way. And eventually was referred to Jack Mitchell with the Evening Hatch. And
oh, yeah.
Jack and I have got a great thing going with regards to he sends me a lot of work, and anytime I can get on the water with any of those individuals, it's always education.
Yeah it is. No, you've mentioned a few great people, and I know most of them. Dave McCoy, and Jason, Jack Mitchell, they're all people that we've connected with. Actually had on the podcast, and Jack Mitchell was, I want to say, episode number 2. We're up to, I think you're going to be episode 700 and something, but Jack was, when I first got going on this, he kind of stepped up and actually helped me, you know what I mean? So I know how cool he is, and everybody else, but that's awesome. So now you're in it. What was it about the Spey for you, coming from Oklahoma, because obviously there's fishing all around the country? What was the hook for you? Why did you just, it feels like you went all in on this. Was there one thing?
It's the thing, right? The thing is the practice, the reading the water, the cast, the tempo. You get totally, I feel like with a brain like mine, there is the ability to find a little bit of peace on the water because it does require a certain amount of focus. And there was something appealing about that. It just clicked. And, I'm 12 years sober. I have an addict.
Wow.
And I have an addict wiring. That is my circuitry. And it just appeals to that because, you get in the zone, you're covering water, you're blasting some decent casts.
Yeah.
You're in it, right? You're lulled into that hypnosis, and then all hell breaks loose, and you're a kite in a hurricane. And whatever chemical surge is occurring, once that happened, I was done for, Dave. I was done
Yeah, you're
for.
in.
The swung fly take was the chasing the dragon from here on out.
Yeah, that's what it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, but it feels like the take is the one, one of the big things, and it's part of that you never know. The fact that you could be there for some places for days, weeks, years, maybe without getting a take, and then other places, you might get more feedback. But it is that question, right? It's so challenging. I think you got the challenging part. It's hard. Do you think when you look at Chinook versus steelhead, and you do steelhead, you do some kiting with steelhead too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm looking forward to going to the OP here in 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
For about 40 days. Yep.
Right. So we'll talk a little about that too. But the Chinook versus the steelhead thing, right? There's a lot of similarities, but the take is different, right? Maybe talk about that. What's your take on the take, the Chinook take versus the steelhead?
The take of the take. Yeah. The only thing, rockets versus semi trucks.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of this distinction for me. The steelhead, there's an element or lack of control in that explosiveness. The Chinook, for me, the weight, the heft of those fish,
right?
Just it feels unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
And it is just, like if you're getting towed behind a boat, it's just, I got to hang on for dear life.
Right. Yeah, that's it. There's just more power.
It is a power distinction. The steelhead is obviously, has its acrobatics and, its nuances. But, they're both radical. I mean, catching the right brown trout on a, 4 or 5 weight setup is just as sick,
Yep.
But there is something special about those, laced up Chinook up there that, as long as they'll have me, put it this way, as long as they'll have me, I'll be there.
You're going back. Yeah, that's right. And what do you guys have there? Do you go up there, you said, for a couple months there at Togiak?
No, it's a pretty short window. I mean, we go for, I believe it's about 4 or 5 weeks. I think we have 4 or 5 rotations come through, and then the boys start to fill up, and, but initially it's the beginning of the season into the middle, and, it's everything that it's chalked up to be.
Yeah. So if you take it to that, if you go to that first fish, I mean, that was early when you were up there, but describe that a little bit. Do you remember that pretty well? Like the conditions, like the everything. Yeah. Well, take us there. What was that like? Where were you? What was set the stage?
Okay. So, we're there. Stevie and Jack and I are building this place, and we get it ready, and the other guides come in, and on the flight in with the client, the first round of clients, we have beautiful weather, water conditions, things are dropping, you're starting to see the shape of the river and some of these runs. And then it decides to rain for about 15 days straight.
Oh, wow.
And these are this is big water, 40, 50,000 CFS.
Oh, wow. So it came way up.
And, you're put into varsity casting positions, where you need to be able to get it done and get it out there, and some can and some can't, and you do what you can. And then about I think it was the second rotation, things started to shape up, and we had picked up the crew in the morning, dropped off the other crew, got them oriented, and we got out on the water. And Kenny Morse was actually hosting that week. And so Kenny was on the boat with me. We went and fished a lower run. We're about 30 minutes into the day. We saw some movement, and my guy hooks in, and Kenny was there to memorialize it with some great photographs. and it was, it was the first one of the crew. It was the second fish of the season.
Oh, wow.
These were a little more seasoned anglers, so that always helps. But yeah, it was just sunny. We had finally dropping into shape, finally in positions where it could get done.
God, that must have been a good day, a good night on Togiak after that.
Oh man, I mean, we were ecstatic, and it slowly but surely ramped up from that point on.
Oh, it did it? So it got better.
It did. It genuinely it improved each day. And we had our board and the guides. We'd meet up every night and see who needs what. And if there were certain runs that were kind of our heavy hitters, then the people who needed one were put in a position to get one first. It didn't matter who their guide was. And I really like that format of spreading the wealth out.
Right, spreading the love. That's good.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So that was it. And what that guy that hooked up there, what was, do you remember the fly, the line he was using there, or the tip?
We were, let's see, we had a T14 and I think a reverse marabou.
Yeah, what,
fly.
like black, purple, pink?
It was,
I've heard pink is the only color you need in Alaska.
Pink can get it done. Yeah, let's just put it that way. But I think I was so wrapped up in getting that fish in the net because I missed the first stab. And I had a pucker moment.
Oh, bet. What was the was poundage? What size fish?
It was over 20.
Oh, it was. Wow. So yeah, big fish.
Yeah.
Is that the size? Is that when you get over 20? Is that pretty much you got a serious fish?
Yeah, over 20s, real fun. And then when you find those 30s, which there's plenty of those, that's something to behold as well. They're all cool, right? There's no, there's no bad fish, but I'm still a knuckle dragger. I still want that. I want that big one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat. I want that. I will fish for less fish, but the fish. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. Is there a mix? Do you occasionally find a lot smaller fish, and maybe even jacks? Are you catching some of those sometimes?
Yeah, so there's plenty of what the boys have coined as super jacks up there,
which are like 20 inches or something like that.
They're like in that 12 to 15 pound category, right? That's what they call super jacks, and anything upwards of that is considered an adult. And yeah, it's a river designed for swinging.
It is. Why is that? Why is the Togiak compared to, because you fish, and the cool thing is you fish California kind of all around, it sounds like. How is the Togiak perfect for swinging? Like, talk about that a little bit.
Oh, it's just that, tundra effect.
Oh.
It's the elevation, not a lot of just the easiest wading you can imagine, not long swingy runs.
Yeah, right. Like gravel. There's not a bunch of like wood and big boulders and stuff like that.
No. If you get hung up on the Togiak, you're not paying attention.
Oh, right. That's cool. So that's good. That's a big thing because you're getting down, right? You are touching the bottom occasionally with your tips.
Yeah. And obviously, there are scenarios where you want to be in a high bank situation. And you might have zero casting room from behind, but if that's where the fish are, there are ways to get that done. And most are willing to go past their comfort zone to do that. And not comfort zone as far as safety, but comfort zone is casting ability. And that's where if you're doing your job as a guide, you give them the confidence and the ability to execute those casts. And there are a couple spots on the Togiak that you'll be standing on the bank, you'll have no room for that D loop, but it's possible. It is possible. You could turn that fly over.
Yeah. How do you do that when you're on the bank? How do you do a Spey cast when you're standing on the bank?
Yeah, you just put your platform or your canvas out in front of you, and the arc of that D loop is essentially what you're designing. So you just start things higher and sooner, and further out.
further out. Is this where you would use the with like the parry poke sort of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, there's a couple different ways to get the same thing accomplished. But, it's usually, I would say, angler specific, to what they're proficient at. And usually, a couple demos that cater to their strength. And, especially on the high bank, you don't have to make a hero cast of 80, 90 feet. You're just trying to get it down into the zone. And with these integrated systems now, it's not that difficult to bury that fly and get it in the column that you believe that they're at.
Right. Are you using for the line, are you using a similar line that you would use for steelhead, or what is that line you're using on Togiak?
Yeah, on Togiak, pretty much I was doing mostly floating heads. Every now and then I would throw, just depending on the water height, high water situations, I'll throw a creeper or a game changer, just to sink it down as fast as possible.
Yeah. And so the floating line, to describe the creeper or the game changer, what are those? How are those connected?
Those are just, integrated heads that are, float, intermediate, sink 3, sink 5, with a chunk of T11 or T14 and a weighted bug,
Yeah. And the advantage of the dry line is that you got more of your line. It's easier to cast, right?
Much easier.
Yeah.
Much easier. I was just going to add that setup I just described isn't the most pleasant, to swing, but if you get the dynamics of it, moving in the right direction, it can be effective in the right scenario. So, but yeah, we all want to be casting, and looking great and throwing our floating heads and long leaders and light flies, but that's not always on the menu.
No. Sometimes you got to get down a little bit. Do you talk about the fly? Is that typically what's the range that you're using up there? Let's stay on Chinook for a little bit on Togiak.
Usually those roughly 3-inch flies, a lot of marabou, weighted, unweighted, depending on the circumstance, in the run. But, black and chartreuse, pink and purple, pink and orange. As you said, pink is pretty hard to beat, in Alaska, when it comes to salmon. But yeah, there's not too many. It's, I'm on my 5th year of guiding now. And, I know our brains, I've had enough of these late night conversations or early coffee conversations. And, it's best for a knucklehead like me to not complicate it too much. And after some time on the water and getting the feedback that you get, it essentially comes down to 2 line systems and 2 flies. Like that. I mean, after all the churching up we like to do, and all of the little tweaks we like to make, it just comes down to 2 lines and 2 flies for me.
2 lines. And what are those? Just to clarify.
No, I mean, it's just site specific, right? Once you've done your homework and you've gone to the lab and you've put it in use in the field, essentially you're getting feedback from 2 systems, a floating system, an integrated system, a non-weighted bug, and a lightly weighted bug or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. And I'm interested. The Spey camp I think it's interesting because I think Stevie, you guys kind of started out in the program where you had this camp, and now I think you've moved more into Togiak. But talk about that camp. I'm interested to hear I'm picturing something, but describe the Spey camp. What was it like? You did it for like a couple years or a few years?
We did it for 1 year.
Oh, just one. Okay. So what? So it wasn't It wasn't as easy as going to Togiak then.
No. Now that we do it through the lodge, that is what I call a crushed velvet. Right. It's honey boo boo lifestyle compared to what we did that first year.
Yeah. Did you guys have to because what you do is you go from Anchorage, then you take a plane over to the town of Togiak, right?
Correct.
And then from there you hop on a jet sled. Did you guys do the same thing where you hopped on a sled with a bunch of gear and tents and all this stuff and just went up there?
Exactly. Yeah. We had a shipping container that had all of the stuff, the site that they had originally planned, I believe, fell through, so they had to pivot pretty fast. And this is all during COVID, so you have those complications as well. And Stevie and Jack and I would get up every day, grab the saw and the scout blade, and try and form some sort of platform of the frozen, gnarly Alaska tundra.
Oh, wow. So you were out there in the tundra
Yes.
trying to build like the platform to put your tents on.
Yeah. And by platform, we're not talking about like wood decks or anything. We're just talking about flat space to throw these canvas tents on. And, had a gravel bar that I think I ended up doing. I think I counted because it was a badge of honor. Like, I think 36 different loads of 10 buckets of gravel to kind of fill in some of the holes, and walking up those banks
Oh man,
just
you made
just
your pay. You
clearing
made
it.
your pay that year.
I feel like I made a contribution to the cause. And, it was beautiful. We kind of lined the guest tents out on a ridge, and to call it a ridge is, I mean, we're talking about 2-3 feet of difference in elevation
Right, from the river. And did you
from,
have any issues with, you mentioned the 50,000 CFS. What if that flow would have come up?
well, it did come up and it flooded camp.
Oh, it did. So you so you had camp was flooded.
Yes, and I have pictures of where the guide tent was, and that we were shin deep in water,
Holy cow.
and so we had to just make it happen on the fly. And the guests were ready to tap out, and it just so happened that it worked out that the next round of guests were already in Anchorage and they wanted to come. And so we were waiting for the fog ceiling to lift so that the pilot could get our guys out and bring us a whole new crew. And in that 2.5 hour window, we moved the entire camp to the driest space that we could in that area that we had cleared. It was a pit crew moment. It was all hands on deck.
Oh wow.
Uh, and, it worked out. We made it work,
You did. So you got a full season in there. You guys didn't have to pack up halfway through and
No,
kind of hang your head and go.
no. We dug in. We dug in. We were there. We were
Yeah,
in it.
yeah. In retrospect, it seems like those are always the times where when you're in it, it's like, oh my God, this is like the end of the world. But then you get out and you have like the great story. Do you look back on it now as like more fond memories, or is it still painful?
Oh no, it's quite painful.
Yeah, it is.
Uh,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's painful.
in a good way, like you're describing. Like I said, this was my first gig.
Right. Yeah. And this was your first Alaska gig. Like
This
you're,
was my first gig, period,
oh
Dave.
wow, this is right. You're just in it. So you're
And
learning everything.
every morning I would take a moment before I stepped out of the guide tent, and I would just have a little conversation with the universe. And essentially, it was a one-way conversation that said, this is what you wanted. So you want to be a spay guide. Okay, here you go.
That's so good. It's so good because it's like the ultimate, right? You just described at the start, like you wanted to be a spay guide, and now you're in this place where it's the most extreme. I can't imagine anything more extreme than literally you're camping in Alaska, which can change right quickly, and you guys are just battling, and then you're in the middle of it, and then you're deciding like, and then after the season too. So you get back now. At any point after that season is over, are you sitting there thinking, "Man, I don't know if I want to be a spay guide"?
Nope,
You're not.
nope,
So you're all in.
nope. That just sealed the deal
Oh wow.
for me. I thought to myself, this was what it was, with the challenges that it presented and the hours and the sweat equity, and the stoke was still there. And that was my measure that this is a path for me.
Wow. Okay. So that's the Spey camp, and then the next year, do you guys roll into Togiak Lodge?
Well, they did. Stevie had brought in, with Chris Childs, had brought in some people for the next 2 years and had kind of worked out what, the program details and logistics would look like. And then last year, we did a full program at the lodge, which was such a different experience, just being dry and having amenities and rolling up and being able to gas your, not having to make fuel runs and trash runs. I mean, everything, all the conveniences of lodge life.
Who was cooking on the Spey camp?
We had a camp hand who, for all intents and purposes was probably a little green, didn't quite understand. I don't think any of us really.
Yeah, you didn't know. Like, you probably, even Stevie probably didn't know what you were getting into, Roy, probably.
But no, we all pitched in and cooked when we could, and when it was required. Alex, and I'm not going to say Alex's last name because I will butcher it, but Alex would help him with breakfast. I would help with dinner. We were doing a split shift, so we wanted to stay out of the lodge's way. This is the first year because they had a full season going, full lodge going. So we would fish from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m., have essentially our big meal at lunch, which was the dinner that they would be serving at the lodge. And then we would go back out at 4 p.m. And fish till about 9 or 10 p.m.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so you broke it up.
Yeah, and that split shift was interesting, because there's always things to be done to prepare for the next round, and whether it's a meal or gear and boat and whatever the camp requires. So yeah, that put another factor into it that was part of the beauty of the challenge, right?
We've heard many of the stories on this podcast. Togiak River Lodge is one of the great destinations for swinging flies for Chinook, stripping for coho all day, and unwinding in a lodge right on the riverbank of the Togiak River. With access to all 5 salmon species plus rainbows, Dolly Varden, and more, Togiak offers a true Alaskan experience. Picture over 30 miles of river, seasoned guides, high-quality boats, and low fishing pressure. It's fly fishing Alaska at its best. I'll be heading up this summer, so reach out to Jordan and the crew to see what dates they have available this year. You can learn more right now at wetflyswing.com/Togiak. That's Togiak, Togiak. Alaskan fly fishing like you've always dreamed about. So you guys survived that, and then at Togiak, so you're there now. You were there this last year. It's 25. So in 24, you were there like a full season.
Correct.
Yeah, or for the Chinook. And then was that pretty, yeah, like we're saying, just pretty nice. That's pretty much roll out. You got food ready to go. You kind of you're going.
I mean, we order off a breakfast menu. The gals come out and take our order. The gas tank is right there. The boats are right there. You just round up your folks for the day, and we've already discussed who's hitting what beats, and you're off and running, and come back, clean up, get out of your waders, hang them up. It was just luxury.
Luxury, right? Yeah, luxury. So you get the Togiak. What is and we'll probably swing back to Togiak, but I'm kind of curious. You mentioned, at the start, some of the different areas. Have you fished, like steelhead wise? I guess we could take it there. I'm guessing, or have you fished Chinook, salmon species, any other areas other than, up there?
Just only as incidental. Yeah, really.
Right. So you've been more steelhead has been what you've done.
Yeah. When I'm in the lower 48, I'm usually pursuing steelhead or trout.
Okay, steelhead or trout. And what are the steelhead? What are some of the areas? Are you're fishing for steelhead kind of on a regular basis, or have you fished the last few years?
I'd say probably a couple of the lower Columbia basins are tributaries. I love the Klickitat. I fish the Cowlitz. Backyard here, I'm in Portland, so I fish the Clackamas and the Sandy. I do guiding on the Nehalem. when she's in shape, and then I head up to the OP for the Super Bowl of steelheading, as far as what we have. And so that's pretty much what I would consider my home base waters.
That's it. So you're focused mostly on winter steelhead is your focus.
Yeah, and then obviously the summer and fall fish on the Klickitat and the Cowlitz are definitely players.
Yeah, gotcha. What's the and the OP? Why is that the Super Bowl? What is it about? For those that haven't been up there, how is it different than the other ones you mentioned, the Lower Columbia, the Cowlitz, stuff like that?
Well, I think it's the potential for that encounter with a dinosaur, right? I mean, that's always, it just feels like it's there.
You mean a better chance to get a big steelhead, a 20-pounder or something like that?
Yeah, the math feels like for once it might be in your favor to get that fish of a lifetime. And I know that's not everybody's jam, but I'm still green, and I still want to go find that fish that makes me question my manhood and just wrecks me. That to me is where my pursuit is at. And, places like the Hoh, when you're standing on the banks of the Hoh River and the conditions are what they are, there's really it is one of my favorite places on this planet that I've visited so far.
Yeah, the Hoh. And the Hoh's a big river, pretty big, right?
Yeah.
Decent size, yeah. Like the size, it would be similar to like a, I don't know, what would be the comparison river? Like is the Cowlitz, is that different, a lot different?
Yeah, that's probably a good comparison. Anything probably under 4,000 is optimal. They rage up. And the Nehalem's the same way. It's just a kind of a different substrate. There's something about that gravelly, what Jack Mitchell would call that glacial water. It's glacier runoff in clay banks that has this unique tint. You got elk crossing the stream. You've got the Olympic Range behind you, snow-capped, and you've got every shade of green you could imagine with the ferns and the mosses, and it's just land before time stuff. And it's a special place to me. But each trip, anything from the Klamath and the Trinity to the Rogue, I mean, the Smith is another epic. I mean, they all have their unique characteristics that are appealing. I just particularly, when it comes to winter, I like to go to two places. I like to be on the Nehalem. I like to be on the Hoh, and those are, yeah.
Yep, that's it. Okay, cool. And so that's a little on the steelhead. We we're hopefully going to be at Togiak this year. So are you going to be there this year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. So that would be awesome to kind of meet you in person and see some of this action on the water. What do you tell somebody? And actually, as we're talking, we're kind of talking in the future here, but we have a giveaway going, and somebody's going to win a chance to go up on this trip. That's part of the deal here. But what would be for that person? Whoever's going to win this trip to Togiak, what would you be telling that person, like right now, if that person's listening, to get ready for this? Like, if they've never, say, fished for Chinook or maybe even Spey?
Mm-hmm. I would say prepare.
Yeah.
I would say practice and get familiar with those heavier setups.
Right. Which is what is that? Is that a 9?
Yeah, it's a 9, 9 and 10 weights, 650 grains plus or minus thereof. And just get used to turning over something that's got some dumbbell eyes, prepare yourself to maximize the opportunity is what I would say, because going up there and getting into a rhythm and then doing a day or two versus having some preparation and, getting the lay of the land and being in your rhythm within 2 hours is quite a difference. So I would say maximize your opportunity by preparing and going to your casting pond or your local water, putting those heavier systems in your hand and get a feel for it and get comfortable and get those reps, get that muscle memory so that you can just soak it in.
Right. Maybe even get a lesson. Right.
Oh, 100%, Dave.
Yeah. Where would you go for that on the lesson, like a Spey lesson? I know, where would you point somebody if they're thinking like, man, I need a lesson, but I don't know where to start?
Um, just depending on where you're located, any of your fly shops.
They'll probably have something. So like Dave McCoy, Emerald,
Yeah,
Jason.
Jason, they will point you in the right direction. And that is an investment that I encourage anybody. And look, I have been back almost a year from the Togiak, my first guide gig, and I went back out and paid for another lesson. I mean, I paid for two. Scratch that. I paid for two. Like the evolution and the instruction and the perspective and the verbiage that others use and the technical ability, that it all goes hand in hand with your recipe of success. And that investment, that time, is well worth it. So instead of me out there beating my head, making the same mistakes, pushing with my top hand, rushing my forward cast, my anchor placement, having an objective lens behind you, either videoing or watching, like that will increase the learning curve significantly.
Yeah.
And is well worth it and will relate to happy times on the water. It's a no-brainer getting instruction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest take home we have on here is that, that's, and obviously you're spending lots of money on all this other stuff, so you might as well put a little bit of that investment into yourself, right?
Well, yeah, and most instructors, they're not going to bend you over a barrel for their time, because there's only so much you can absorb, right? And so it's going to be an hour and a half session, and they're going to give you stuff to work on, and you now go work on it, and then you come back to it.
Is that how it kind of works with so that your typical, maybe take it to your lesson, you go out there, you've got some experience, but it's an hour and a half and you get there and it's a little bit of watching the instructor. Maybe talk about how that lesson looks.
Yeah, it's some demos, and the instructor is going to feel you out as well, but they're going to more than likely have it in their hand, and they're going to talk you through what they're doing as they're doing it. And so then it's just a cut and paste situation where you're trying to emulate them along with your specific biomechanics that they watch, and they break it down simply, and they break it down into bite-sized pieces, because there's so many things happening at once that self-diagnosis can make a man or woman dizzy.
Right. Yeah, that's where it's kind of crazy, because you don't know what you're doing kind of wrong or right.
Or what you did right. Like, how did I just do that? That was the furthest I've thrown all day. What did I just do? And so, having that feedback is invaluable. And then, give it some time on your own, work on it, see, what the next hurdle is, and then go back to the drawing board, break it down again, and, evolve. And, if that's the goal, awesome. That's how you do it. I am doing nothing but standing on the shoulders of people who have already cut their teeth. Like that is just what I'm trying to do.
That's the amazing thing about it, right?
Yeah.
The cool thing is that, we've heard some of those stories about some of the people that were there at the start or, earlier on, and they've been on here. But the cool thing about where you're at is that you kind of got started when you had a lot of that was already, the new lines, right? The stuff's there.
Yeah.
And me too. I mean, I benefited from that too. Like I didn't develop any of that stuff, and it was like, okay, the Skagit stuff works. Like you know what I mean? Like it's a different world. Do you think looking ahead, it feels like, what else do you have to work on? Do you feel like your Spey game, you still got a long ways to go to kind of get up to that upper level, or how's that look for you?
Yeah, I follow some people in the field who are worlds more talented than I am, around these parts, Travis Johnson is, a technician. And so he mentioned something the other, I don't know, it was a couple months ago, and it kind of was a conviction for me to switch my hands, right? To start practicing, with a different grip with, my left hand on top, and just being able to do it and get it done from any position. And that's kind of the goal right now in the short term, is to be able to get it done no matter what the impediment or whatever the roadblock is. If my view is, to hike down into a place that maybe only has 12 decent swings, or to make a cast from under these trees and get it turned over, if it's holding that 10 or 12 pound steelhead, would it be worth it? And the answer is always, without a doubt, 100% yes.
Yep.
So get it figured out, right?
Yep. Yeah,
and challenge yourself and get uncomfortable and look silly. And I do plenty of that. So
yeah. So that's it. So the left hand or right hand on top, getting proficient where you're just as good with the left hand as the right hand on top.
Yeah.
I'm not there either. That's the thing. It's like, I think that's one of my biggest struggles, right? Is getting to that point where you're equal.
Yeah.
Right?
And that will translate into you providing a better service for the client, because whether it's you have a left-handed client, or, somebody who's wanting to evolve their spay cast, as you improve, you can pass that along just as it was passed along to you. So yeah, having those people as sort of my guardrails. Tom's always trying to push himself. Jason is constantly innovating with line systems and materials and fly colors, and so it's just a cool evolution to sort of to full send and try and challenge yourself and not find that complacency.
Right. Yeah.
Jack Mitchell.
Yeah.
Jack Mitchell is a great example. I'd like to see anybody keep up with him, first off, on the water.
Right. Yeah. I remember that when we had, so the cool thing about Jack is our first steelhead, kind of group trip, we did host a trip when I can't remember what year, but it was early when we started the podcast. We fished with Jack, and then we took a little hiatus and didn't do trips for a while, but we did that. And I recognized that in Jack right away. Like out there, he was, he had everybody set up, but then he was also still guiding and still going strong, like fishing, doing things all day long. Like he's always going, right?
I hate to put this, on recording.
Yeah.
But Jack Mitchell is an inspiration. If I can have that level of ability and stoke at his age and for the time that he's been doing it, then I will feel like I'm doing my part. But, he'll tell you right now, that there are things in whether it's water or line system or color scheme or just all the variants, right? He will tell you from his own mouth that there are things that to this day that he's still learning. And that's one of the appeals of this game to me, is that you just it just keeps you right sized, Dave.
That's right. Yeah. You're never going to master the spay or really even just the fly, anything. That's what keeps it going. Yeah, we had that conversation. It was interesting because, I think that's the harder it is to get some of these species, the more passionate people probably get about it. Like the muskie or the steelhead, or it feels like the Chinook fishing can be challenging, but in different ways, right? Because if you're there in the right time, the fish are there, right? They're there, but if they're not there and the conditions change or the river's 50,000 CFS, that can be a whole different set of challenges. You know what I mean? Is that the biggest thing when you look at steelhead versus Chinook? Is that the biggest thing where, like, I feel like steelhead's always like, well, you never know. Is this the year? Like, are we going to have an up year or down year? Are the fish there? Is Chinook the same way?
Yeah, I would say there's probably more uncertainty on the steelhead side.
On the steelhead, yeah. Right.
We're just with my limited, experience. That's what I would say.
At least for these areas, probably like the Togiak, some of these areas who still have strong runs of Chinook, right? There's definitely, we've heard the stories about the Kenai, places where there's closures and things, but I think that, it's a salmon run. They come in. Steelhead is definitely, it's a little bit different. But you're hitting the OP, and we've had Trevor Kovich on and stuff like that, and he's really talked about how he feels like there's a negative, it's too negative of a message out there. He feels like there's still really good runs, coming in there.
My experience, my first full season was last year.
Okay, yeah, you gotcha. Did you guys have some success?
We had a great time.
Yeah.
We had a great time, and there were fish to be had on all three systems. We hit the saw duck, the bogashil, and the hoe. And, given the options, I'll be on the hoe every day, but that's not always an option. But no, I feel like the success was there, and all indicators from what we think we know says it should be another successful year. The counts and whatnot, and those variables are pointing in the right direction, and I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I really do. For selfish reasons entirely.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's it. Nice. Well, let's we mentioned it before, but let's take it out of here with our trip giveaway shout out. So everybody right now can go to wetflyswing.com/giveaway, and folks can enter right now to win that. We're also going to be looking to sell some spots for people who want to come up here. So if anybody listening now wants to get in on this, they can just send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com, and I'll let you know what we have on availability. So I'm pretty excited about this because I think it's this one of those destinations, there's these places around, different species, right, that you think about, redfish or whatever it is, muskie. And but I feel like this is one of those destination species and spots, that you kind of have to go to, right? You have to do Alaska before you die. Is that, what is it about the Alaska thing versus anything else you've done that like, what is Alaska? Why is it separated from the rest?
Well, because Alaska has still got them, right? And with Alaska, you are reminded of your place in the pecking order of the natural world, and the fishery, the amenities are all that they're built up to be. So the hype is real. And to say, I don't want to put anglers into classes, I don't really like doing that, but I have seen firsthand people who are taking the plastic off the cork.
Oh, wow.
And are willing to, just get uncomfortable and learn something new. And those people find fish in Alaska. And so you don't have to be a mega hucker. You don't have to be all of those things that we build up in our mind that usually don't come to fruition. You can get it done. In Alaska.
So somebody listening right now, even if they have never picked up a Spey rod, have never, maybe even, whatever, they could go up to Alaska and have a chance, or maybe go on this trip for Chinook and have a chance at a Chinook. That's what you're saying.
You got your line in the water, you got a chance, Dave.
You got a chance. Right.
And, I think that with the staff and the program that Epic and the boys have built up there, you're going to get the type of instruction that will give you the best chance of success. That's my biased view of it.
Well,
right?
And Stevie, he's obviously a big name. I think Stevie, he's been on the podcast a couple times, and he's been on In the Bucket with Brian, and I've had him on here. But yeah, it feels like he's got a really cool program. Do you know much about that? Have you talked to Stevie about that thing he has going around with Epic?
We stay kind of focused mostly on what we're doing on the Togiak at the time, Yeah,
you do. So that's you're like there for that period, and it's like we have one focus, and that's to get people into Chinook and have a good time.
And I should probably be having those conversations with Stevie about his other programs, but I'm too busy making fun of him.
Right.
So, he quite possibly could be the funniest man I've ever met in person. Oh my gosh. His delivery is gold.
What's his delivery like? How would you describe it? Like, what is the comic?
He's just a dry Canadian that is just going to cut you to ribbons, and you're not even going to realize it till you see your arm on the ground.
That's it. Love that. That's it.
But he is one fishy dude, and technically he is, as sound as they come, and, just spending time dissecting water and brainstorming with Stevie, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. So
that's it. Okay, cool. So So, well, that's pretty much it. I've got a couple of random ones here, and then we'll take it out of here. First, let's just start with this. I always like to get a couple of tips. So you're on the water. We're sitting there. We've got all of our gear. We've got and what length is the right length for the 8 or 9 or 10 weight?
I like the 14
Yeah,
ish.
14-ish. Yeah, so that's right. So a little bit longer, and that way it gives you a little more control. Is that the idea there on
Yeah,
missions? Yeah.
and pick up those heavier, make it easier to have the leverage to pick up those heavier systems.
Yeah. Okay, so you got that, and then do you have a rod manufacturer, or do you kind of use a little bit of everything?
I've got my 9-weight Scott.
Yeah, Scott. Again, that's where you forget about this. There's so many rods out there, and they're all good, right? They're all great, but Scott's in the game. Everybody's in the game.
Yeah, and go to your local fly shop and put them in your hand and play around. I mean, they want these things off the shelves, and go find something that kind of um, slots the peg for you, right?
Is that what the Portland Fly Shop? If you were to walk into Jason's shop, which is on the west side of Portland, just off of 405, it's right downtown. Is
Yeah.
it what's it like when you go in there? Does Jason have just a bunch of Spey? Is it a mix? What's his shop like?
Yeah, he's a fly shop, and I've seen this firsthand. I've seen people walk in off the streets who are just spin fishermen and have some questions, and Jason and his guys there do not hold back. There's not any of that sort of elitist us versus them, gear versus fly. And whatever your pursuit is, they are going to do everything they can in their extensive bag of experience to put you in a successful position. That's kind of what I love about those guys over at Portland Fly Shop. They do not discriminate. They are going to help you out with what you have. And if you're looking to up your game, they're going to facilitate that in every which way they can.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now Jason's doing a cool thing over there. And that is an interesting conversation about the conventional and Spey, right? Or fly, is that you have, especially when you're at a lodge or something like that, do you feel like, and you haven't been there a long time, but do you feel like is there a mix of guys there at the lodge? You get some conventional guys. I know there's some transition going, but like in the evenings when you're there, is that kind of, or do you guys have the program where it's all Spey?
No, there's a little bit of overlap.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, we all love the same resource. And what appeals to you and what appeals to me as far as tactics isn't a distinction I'm going to get hung up on.
No.
The pursuit and appreciation of the resource, that is common ground.
Yeah, it is.
And that's what should be focused on.
So you don't see the old white, again, I always go back to the old elitist, yuppie, old white guy. Do you not see that as much because of the Jason and the shot and the people you're around, or do you still see some of that out there?
I mean, there's some of that around, but the tone that is set in the places and the people that I work for, to say it's shut down, it's not shut down aggressively. It's just not really acknowledged to give it that much energy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Because the bottom line is, we all know where this resource is at this time. So we all have our part there. We do not need to go the way of the buffalo with these species. And so it's our responsibility, right? To adjust and to accept shutdowns and regulations and travel an extra 45 minutes to an hour to go to some open waters, and let things recover and do our part.
Yeah. This has come up a couple of times on the show. Would you, if it got in some of these areas where, you couldn't, just the runs were down, on maybe your favorite water, but instead of closing it, they were like, well, you can only use flies that don't have a hook, right? No barb or no hook at all. So you just basically feather. Would you still fish that? Would that be interesting?
Ooh, boy, that's a deep question.
Like just getting I guess winter steel has different probably because you're down, but if you're doing like summer steelhead, right, you'd have more feedback maybe if you're doing some stuff on the surface.
As opposed to that, I would just travel further. I would make the investment to go somewhere where they're not in jeopardy is what I would do. And I fish with people who would do that. I am just a brush monkey who's not that evolved yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're early in the game. That's the amazing thing about it because, it's all an evolution. We're all, I mean, I've evolved and stuff like that. So it's pretty, that's part of the fun.
Yeah, we are where we are at, right?
Yep, at this moment, right? And be in the moment. That's also the take home is that, this is the moment right now. Whether you're out in the river swinging for that one cast, right? Be in that moment. Don't be thinking about, whatever else you could be thinking about.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's get a couple of random ones here, and then we'll take it out of here. You mentioned a few things I thought that were pretty powerful. One of them, let's just start, go deep just for a second here on, you mentioned staying sober 12 years. I feel like a lot of people, that's a big thing, a big struggle for a lot of people. I dealt with, I've had alcoholism in my family, for my whole life, right? So it's always a challenge. What would you be the tip? Somebody's listening now and they're wanting to, to get to where you are. What would you tell that person?
Well, if that's a struggle that they're going through, then
or maybe what's helped you do it.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have people in my life through their charity that I was able to go get help in a treatment facility.
There you go.
And the most common, and this might be a little over people's head, but don't believe your thoughts. That is the one. My brain, even to this day, is not always my friend.
No,
my
right.
reaction versus my response is a universe of distinction. So, because it feels impossible, because it feels hopeless, because there is no solution that your brain can come up with, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Asking for help, putting one foot in front of the other, doing what is recommended or suggested, and rinse and repeat until you can rewire that brain and make it trustworthy is kind of the path that I took.
Yep, and it's worked, and that's amazing. Yeah, I think that's it's you know what I mean? We all have these struggles, and there's different things. I kicked tobacco, actually about the same time as you. Actually, I think it has been something about 12 years, 13 years now.
That's huge. I feel like that's my next one.
Yeah.
There's just not been enough heat yet, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my tips on that. I'll actually send you to I do have a blog post out there I wrote, way back in the day. I think it's still out there, but it was like the 12 things that helped me quit. And it was, you know what I mean? Like you said, some of them, accountability, like tell everybody you're quitting.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, everyone.
No more secrets.
Yeah, no more
secrets.
Because you can quit. Because I did that. I quit like 100 times, that year before I quit for good. But once I told people, that was big. And then, you know what I mean? Like set a plan and have something else to fill the gap. For me, it was like working out, running, exercising. You know what I mean? You got to have something to fill the gap. So those are my two little tips on it. It's worked, but also have a meaning. You have a reason to do it. For me, it was right when my first daughter was born, and I was like, all right. You know what I mean? Like this is a good time to do it.
There you go.
They've never seen me. They've never seen tobacco, right? With me. That's never been even a thing. So that's and the reason I chewed, if you think about it, why did I start chewing? Because my dad chewed Copenhagen, because my 3 older brothers chewed. And so I chew, right? It's a family. It's like, you got all this family stuff, pressure, genetics, the environment. So anyways, does that make sense? Does that resonate with you at all?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. You can just go down the family tree with mine as well. And the verdict was already in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, you mentioned a boat. Are you more a foot, or do you have a boat out there that you're fishing out of?
Yeah, no, we do everything with boots on the ground. So I've got a liquid Sotar and
you have a raft.
Yeah, and so I get us from point A to point B, and we dissect water, and we swing. If it can be swung, we swing it.
Yeah, the raft's big, right? The raft gets you to places that a drift boat can't get to.
That tends to be the case. I do like it. It's just much more forgiving.
Yeah, right. It's it's forgiving too, right? And you can get a little more white water. We actually talked to the I think it was it Jack Clackacraft, the guy who's kind of running the show at Clacka, when we were asking about that, like the boats, they're still kicking butt, but that's the same thing. Like there's some places where you wouldn't take a Clackacraft, right? That you can't, even though you could take those a lot of places, there's some places where I wouldn't take that, drift boat. I'd rather take a raft.
Yeah. And my rock and roll days are over. I will do things in accordance to my skill set, and if portage is required, we will. But the ultimate goal is to enjoyably start and finish the day. And so, that might have not have been my point of view 25 years ago, but fortunately now I've come to the game with the right mentality, with a healthy respect.
Love it. This is great. This has been awesome, Floyd. I think, we can leave it there. I'll send everybody out to carterspey.com and also, or is that the best way? Maybe just tell us, where is the best place to send people if they want to connect with you and pick your brain on stuff?
Well, Carter Spey, or just, reach out directly to the phone number, the 405-402-5253.
Awesome.
And I'm usually around, and if I'm not, then I get back pretty quickly.
Yeah, perfect. So if people are interested, and it's still time, right? As this episode comes out, obviously it's going to be out there a long time, but right now I think it's going to go live in probably February. Yeah, a couple weeks. So is this right now prime time? Are you out there like full winter steelhead right now?
Oh yeah, I've been waiting for what we have today.
Right.
Which we had some rain show up, and I mean we had next to nothing for January, and I feel like this is the pulse. This is what we're looking for.
Yeah, the pulse. So where are you going? So you get that pulse, and you, like you said, you're hitting the OP. So you're heading to the OP to the, and then you're going to do that for a month or so, and just like, are you like go hard, like just kind of dirt bag it, trout bum sort of thing? You're going for it?
Yeah, I'll be guiding for I'll have a couple days off in between, but I'll be guiding for 30 to 40 days up there, and then when I'm not guiding, I'm going to be out there with friends or myself. And I mean, if I'm not out there getting paid to do it, then I'm out there getting the payment myself.
That's amazing. Yeah, you got it, dude. This is great. All right, yeah, Floyd, we'll like we said, we'll send everybody out. We'll have links in the show notes, and thanks again for all your time today. Looking forward to hopefully getting on the water with you as well, and staying in touch.
It sounds like we're going to share some time out there on Togiak.
Yeah,
so I look forward to it.
All right, before we get out of here, just want to remind you, if you're interested in this trip, we have limited spots for Togiak River Lodge. This is it doesn't get any better than this. We've got the lodge on the river. We've got Chinook salmon, King Salmon. If you're interested in this trip right now is your chance. Check in with me, Dave at wetflyswing.com, and follow up with me, and I'll let you know. We're going to be sending some stuff out to see who wants to jump in on this, and it's going to be July. So if you want to get out into Alaska sky, under the land of the midnight sun, if you want that experience and to just go all in on this Spey trip, check in with me. All right, just want to remind you, if you're on Spotify right now, definitely make sure to follow the show so you get the next episode delivered to your inbox, and I'm going to get on to the next one. Hope you have a great morning. Hope you have a great afternoon or great evening, wherever you are in the world, and hope to see you up on Togiak and talk to you soon.